My project was is about United Kingdom economy. Is just a briefly overview of the UK economy in the last 20 years. For the project, I choose these libraries: Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, PyPlot, stats models, uh, and Seaborn. Now I'm loading. I've done it before, so we'll show higher number. So I run the libraries. Now this is my data frame. Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 indicators. These are the years 2004 and 2023. And now how it looks like printed, like that. So this is the data frame. This looks printed. And this, I calculate a new indicator, working population, the percentage of the total population that was working each year analyzed. Here is the code. And then this is how it looks like the data frame after I've done. And here is the new indicator. The new indicator shows that each person that worked paid for another person that didn't. Persons that didn't work included children, pensioners, and other persons that are not able to work. Then I calculate the labor force growth in 2023 compared to 2004. The labor force grew with 16% in the last 20 years analyzed. Here is the code. Then I calculate the population growth from 2004 to 2023. The population grew with 13% in the last 20 years, less than the labor force. Then I did a plotter unstacked area with the previous results with the labor force growth and population growth. And I tried to do a stacked one, but I didn't like it how it looked like. So I've done an unstacked one. Now I run the code. So the code is working. The labor force, it is indeed, as says here, red, but because it's unstacked, actually will show this will make green and red will make this brown, light brown, when you see the labor force. And with green is the population, of course, and uh, lower is uh, the labor force. So basically the new indicator shows that so yeah, I told about the new indicator. So this is, you can see that only half of the population worked from total population work. Then I calculate which is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value of the GDP. So the highest is 3 trillions point 2, and here is the median one, $2 trillion point 5. Here would be a point, but here is the full number in trillions. Then I calculate the difference between the highest and the lowest. The difference between the highest and the lowest value of the GDP in the last 20 years is 64, 60, 684 point 35 billions. Sorry for the billion dollars. This was for the GDP. You can see here the full number. Then I calculate the average and the median for the of following indicator: GDP value, GDP growth, GDP per capita at purchasing power, inflation, exchange rate, population growth, population total, labor force unemployment, Gini index, and working population. Was just more uh, an exercise. Not all of these are relevant because there is a long period, and considering this indicator sometimes is just an exercise. And this for after I calculate each of them, I did like a new data frame to show them all together. From all the indicators, the median is higher than the average for GDP, the population growth, population total, labor force, and working population. This means that in the last 20 years, these three indicators had some outliers or years with high increase or sudden decrease, which is normal because have been in this period the second Great Depression in 2009, and then COVID years. Then I compared the two GDP per capita. I plotted the comparison of the two GDP per capita with values on each point. Here is the code, the code, and of course I did a summarize of the data. And here when I run the code, looks like that. This is how the code looks like, and I summarize the data. Here is a summary as well of the data. And GDP per capita at purchasing power and GDP per capita followed the same trend in the last 20 years, with a gap around $6,000 in US dollars in favor of the first indicator mentioned. During COVID years, both indicators dropped almost till the 2009 level, but the recovery period was faster and back to the same level after the 2 years, even though last year's both indicators slightly and unexpectedly decreased, considering that both were in a recovery phase. This is not totally unexpected, but it's still unexpected because it's to the increase and the increase phase, and then a new decrease phase is way too quick compared to the previous 17-18 years. This then I've done in which 3 years the value of GDP was the highest. In the last 2 years, the GDP values exceeded the 2019 value, keeping an increasing trend. Then I've done in which 3 years the GDP growth was the highest. The highest GDP growth in the last 20 years have been in 2021, immediately after the COVID year. The difference results are not surprised, as the GDP value can be on a higher level for many years in the row, even if the growth isn't as high. Then I did how how inflation influenced GDP. Oh, sorry, here I have a mistake. And I've done another plot here. And of course, I calculate the correlation as well. The correlation between GDP growth and inflation is positive but low. When GDP increases with 100 basic points, or 1 percentage point, the inflation increases with 18 basic points. This is a good news. It means that during the last 20 years, the economic growth influenced marginal the increase of inflation, and the other way around. So inflation doesn't influence that much the GDP growth. Then I did a scatter plot to visualize the correlation between GDP growth and inflation. Here, and this scatter plot is I has different color for each year to be more to see clearly if there was any year and when the correlation was higher and other one wasn't. I don't know why it shows so the correlation between 1 and -1 and 1, but for some reasons I couldn't change this because the value of the inflation and the value of the GDP growth looks a little bit a little bit that of course the correlation is still between -1 and 1, and here shows when the have been influenced more so basically so in the last year here this dot was basically haven't been uh, influenced too much in which is the relationship between inflation and unemployment, which is the relationship between inflation and unemployment. And I define a function to calculate and visualize the relationship between inflation and unemployment. And I'll run the code. This is the code and shows like this. And of course, I've done a correlation as well. The correlation between inflation and unemployment, or Phillips curve, is negative and lower. This is a semi-bad news. The William Phillips theory says higher inflation is associated with lower unemployment and vice versa. The data for the last 20 years show that in many years lower inflation was associated with lower unemployment, which doesn't leave any space for economic growth. Here shows that correlation was low and negative. So basically is good because it's negative, but it's lower negative. So it's basically there is no influence. There's not much influence. And here I've done the same thing, except I add some histograms, but I semi-liked this one. I don't know. Shows that in some years there still have been a correlation. And now I did how was Gini index influenced by GDP growth, population growth, inflation, unemployment, and exchange rate. I calculate the relationship between Gini index and other indicators. Of course, I've done correlations. Here are the results. The GDP growth and an unemployment rate had no influence over Gini index. On the other side, an increase of $0.1 of the exchange rate will decrease Gini index with 0.75. Surprisingly, an increase with 1 percentage point of the population will increase the Gini index significantly with 0.4, while the increase with 1 percentage point of the inflation will increase the Gini index with a low to medium of 0.2. Here I try to run the regression analysis, but didn't work. Was an error. So was an error because some values were missing. Here I checked the values missing. Then the value missing was in the Gini index. I dropped the Gini index values that were missing, and now I've run again the regression analyze. The new regression analyze showed that GDP growth, population growth, and inflation had no influence on the Gini index in the last 20 years, or the influence was insignificantly. Only unemployment and exchange rate had an influence, but overall the variance is not robust. Then I created a scatter plot with linear regression lines for each metric against Gini index. I like this one, how shows this scatter plot with linear regression. I should have done more color, maybe next time. Then I calculate Gini index growth rate for each year. It's like because I thought maybe compared with the other indicator, Gini is an index and was higher than the other numbers. The uh, the other indicators in the analyze, and then these are the results of the Gini index growth. And I've done a new correlation between calculate a new correlation between Gini index growth and the other indicators. The same calcul for Gini index growth showed no directly effect of the GDP growth, population growth, inflation, and the exchange rate, but the unemployment became significantly in the last 20 years. Basically, here says the same thing. Unemployment is very significant, was very significant in how the Gini index evolved in the last 20 years for the UK. Then for this regression analyze, I've create a data frame, or I create a data frame, and I did a plot heat map. And here the regression analysis and the correlation matrix shows that the increase of the exchange rate and unemployment will significantly decrease the Gini index. Here shows, here is the exchange rate, and here is unemployment. Then, so basically exchange rate, everything that it's import, export will have significantly impact on the Gini index. Then I've predict index for the for those two missing value for the each year of the next 2 years. Basically, the Gini was missing for 2022 and 2023 in the database. And then I replaced the missing value in the Gini index column with the predicted values. Here, basically printed again the data frame, and here we'll show the new index, Gini index. The predicted one here doesn't show up. Basically, haven't been much difference between these 2 years when I calculated. And then I printed again the data frame, and here shows the working population and Gini index growth, but didn't took, of course, the index, the Gini index is with the predicted values, and here it is with the new indicator Gini growth. And then I clean, because there were still missing values, as you can see here for real interest rate. I cleaned the data frame by dropping the row with the missing values, and actually I had only 10 years perfect, and because there was missing so many years, I couldn't do the real I couldn't use real interest rate, and I couldn't do Fisher theory. And then I printed again only with this only these 10 years. Thank you.